Quilt Escape fans, we're back again. We're going to do Hunter's Star today. This is a new block, a block with a new patchwork that you maybe haven't tried before, and that is this unit right here. This is the 3-part square. You can see there's 2 triangles on this side and then 1 large triangle on the opposite side. What's really unique about this is that you will be making enough for 2 blocks. You can't get out of that because this is going to make a mirror image every time you go across it. But you'll see as we go along what I'm talking about. So you will have a souvenir block if you're not making 2 quilts like I am. Then you can just use it as your signature block on the back of your quilt if you like. So let's get started and go over to the wall and look at it finished. And I like to look at the block finished. Here's the Hunter's Star. You've got a familiar unit right here. This is your half square. We made these from 3 by 4 inch rectangles. And so you're going to be doing that unit. This will be the new unit we're going to focus on in this video, which is the 3-part square, 1 large triangle and 2 small. And here you've got another strip unit. And what's different than this unit is basically this is cut into 3-inch rectangles by 1 3/4. So it kind of makes it a little more interesting going around it. All right, let's get back over here and begin. And again, you're going to be marking this with your modern triangle tool that you've gotten from me. I may not have said this before, but what is the advantage of doing this as opposed to just marking a line and sewing on the side of a square and sewing a 1/4 inch? And what I am going to share with you is that by rounding the numbers up to 1 inch larger than what they need to be and using the tool to mark, you are actually going to sew on a line that you mark and you're going to get the exact size. So when it comes time to cut these apart and press them open, you're going to have the finished 3-inch square or half square, or you're going to have the finished 3.5. You're not going to need to get another tool out and fussy cut around it because they're already going to come out to the size you need. So with this in mind, and we'll just talk a minute here. First, let's talk about the half square. This is a 3 by 4 inch rectangle, which you can see right here on the mat. And I've already taken the opportunity to mark it. So I've used my 3-inch line and marked it, and then turned the mat around. As you know, I love to do that. And I'm able to put the other line on, just like that. Now for these 2 units, even though, look, they really appear to be smaller, but they are 1/4 square triangles, and they require me to cut the rectangle a 1/2 inch bigger than I had to for the half squares. So these units, the navy and the tan, are actually 3.5 by 4.5. So now I'm going to place the 3.5 inch line on and mark it and do those 2. And then I'm going to turn it around and mark again. And at the 3.5 and the 3.5. Then if you'd like to, you could go ahead and sew all of these at one time, which will make it a little bit quicker. We won't even stop in between. We'll just start sewing. And as usual, we're going to sink the needle and start with a leader. So I'm going to pick up these larger ones, slide that right underneath there, and here we go. You remember how I like to follow up here and overlap them. Now in this case, I'm going to be able to butt them right up because they're rectangles. So they're just going to follow each other. I am going to sew, let me get these straightened out here. I'm going to keep sewing because it does make it go a little faster if I continue sewing. Even though these are a different size, you'll find out that they will follow the other ones. So here you go. And just keep adding them on. Get down to the end here and clip the threads and turn this around. So now we'll be starting on the 3-inch side, and I'm going to start with another leader. Sink the needle, and here we go. I am sewing a little fast, so I've noticed that sometimes I'm not right on the line. Now this is because, and it has nothing to do with me having wine or anything like that. It's just basically that I'm going kind of fast and not, you know, taking my time. Hopefully you're going to do a little better job than I did, and you will take your time. But in the interest of getting it all done for your video, you know the objective is to sew on the line, not off of the line. When I look back at the videos, I found one or two where I can see that I'm off, and I'm like, uh-oh. All right, here we go. So cut these threads, and then we're going to cut in between. And I'm going to get out my handy little tool right here that I do like to cut in between. This makes fast work of that. And cut off the leaders. So we'll put those back over here. Now, I really don't, I can just, now I'm going to tell you something. This is real life. Sometimes I will freewheel it. I just want you to know that I'm not always perfect. So I'll just eyeball that 1/4 inch. So I just wanted you to know that. I don't know what you're going to think of that. You don't have to do it that way, but I'm just showing you that you could. If you're not comfortable with it, you get out your rotary ruler and do it the way I've been showing you. Extending that 1/4 inch. Because I'm definitely not as good with this as I would be with the rotary cutter, but I'm pressing them all to one side, so I'm like really not too worried about it. You can see me rotating the mat just to make it a little easier for me. And remember, I'm just throwing this little part out. And then, you know, I'm a fuddy-duddy about these points, so I'm going to go over here and snap this, or cut those little points right off before I go press it. And they're easier to see while you have that line on there, I will tell you that. As soon as I hit these with the iron, the marked line is going to go away. It will disappear, which is the beauty of the friction marker. So there's all my crumbs. I'm taking these over to the iron now. Close that up. I'm going to put this down so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to pull this over here. Yeah, just that little board. That's all I need to move. And my iron is ready. And remember, flip them to the dark side, because that way you'll be able to press them to the dark real easily. Okay, so there's 4 green ones and 4 blue ones for now. And you just want to set all these seams and then pick up the corners and press it back. Okay. It's not going to take too long to do that. And then I'm going to actually show you that 3-part square, which we're going to be crossing over again with these. Let's put those out there. The green ones are actually finished, so there's nothing else to do with the half squares. They're done deal, just like they are. Little 3-inch squares. I do like to bring it back and put it on the mat, if I could make it sit still over there for you, so you can see it. If you're ever unhappy with one, or maybe you think it's a little shy, you know, you can always press your seams open. They're usually pretty good, and I can work with them without having to do anything. So there you go. There's those 4 out of 2 rectangles. You're going to get your 4 half squares that you need for this block. Now, the next thing is to make a 3-part square. And what we need now are 3.5-inch squares that we're going to layer together. I'll get our crumbs. We're basically going to layer these with the red. So here's your red squares, and I'm just going to put a couple of them here together for you. And I've actually got 2 marked so that you can see what I'm doing. Get another one and put them together. And what you're going to do now is just like the quarter square, only you don't have to worry. I think one of the fun things about this block is you just layered it with a solid square. So there's no nesting, there's no worry about this seam line opposing the other seam line. So now you're going to pick up your tool. You need these to come back at 3, and you're going to mark these at 3. So pretty simple and easy to do. And I actually have some already marked, but I'm just showing you real quick, because once again the difference here is going to be the marking across the last sewn seam. So that's the big difference. And just rotate that mat around, bring that 3 back over here, and mark your second seam. And now they'll be ready to go. Whoops, I'm at 2.5. Shucks, I knew that looked big. Well, the good news is that little mark will go away when I press it, so not to worry. Okay, here we go. And we'll just put the cover on that. And we'll put those 2 together later. I also have 2 marked over here that I can put with these red ones right now. Here, put that down. So I can layer these up right now with these. There they are. 3.5 on top of 3.5. Make sure it's right sides together. That would be a bummer. So make sure you put your squares right sides together. And this is the number that you would really have to sew to get enough units. You would need to sew 4 units. Just like this. 4 half squares on top of 4 solid squares. Now I'm just turning these around because I want them all to be in the same position. It really doesn't matter. It's going to work either way. But let's sew these. And then I'm going to open them up and you'll be able to see what I've been talking about, which is that mirror image. Okay, so here's the deal. When I'm going across the square, remember I like to lift up the corner so that I can get started from that leader right on to the line. So here we go. Again, this time I don't have to worry about feeling in the center because there is not another half square underneath this. This is a solid square underneath it. That is just a little less time consuming. And when I cut these apart, you're going to see right away, I'm only going to sew 2 for the interest of time. And I'm going to show you what happens. I'm just going to go ahead and clip the threads right there. And I have 2 more to sew later. But for you and for your purposes, I'm just going to show you these 2. And I think you'll get the whole concept pretty quickly. Put your leader on, sink your needle. You know, another thing about sinking the needle, it keeps the thread from pulling out. And how many times has that happened to you? You get sewing and you're excited, you get going, and you pull the thread out. And you have to stop and rethread, and you're like, no, I don't want to rethread. But you have to. All right, now, here we go. Let's cut them apart. Then you're going to see there's a right and left side to them. And that's really why you have to have 4 units. And you get a total of 8. Because remember, every time you sew across a square, you are getting you're getting 2 units. So that's the reason why that happens. Let's just put those over here. Even if I just open them up real quick on camera, you're going to see there's the unit. See that? And on the opposite side, there it is. I'll just open it up and you'll see there's the other one. But when I do open them, you're going to notice that they are in fact mirror images. And what you need to make your star are 4 that are the same. I'm going to do it right this time. Okay. Sew across, cut across, get my 1/4 inch. And my little 1/8 of an inch is left as the crumbs. So there's that, right? Now, remember, because we're working sewing across squares, we're going to have these corner tips. And these corner tips have to be removed. So let's just put them down here on the mat and let's quickly take care of that. It's not going to take you long, and it's worth it. When you go to put it back together again, it'll be very much worth it. There we go. And you could do this process with scissors, but I'm just using the rotary cutter for today. It's easier and simple. So here we go. Get rid of my crumbs. Back into my trash can. Now, if you want to, you can press a seam open, or in this case, because it's not a double piece over here, you could press it to the red, whichever one you want to do. Now I have, I think in the past, been doing a pressed open seam here, just seems to lay flatter, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to open these up, and then I will go to the iron and make sure that they are pressed open. Maybe I'll do 2 open and 2 to one side, and we'll see what we think. You could do the same, and then you could choose what you like. My little pressing tool has a right side and a left side. So if you're a righty, it works for a right-handed person. If you're a lefty, the angle's a little bit different for a left-handed person. That's kind of a cool thing. Now, here's 2 of them. And we have to lay them on the mat. Now notice, these 2 are the same. Do you see how they match? Take a look at that. That means these 2 are going to be the opposite. We'll soon see that. I'm going to press these over. This one I did not. I chose not to press open. Really, in the interest of time. If I were doing my quilt, I would do it. Now look at the difference here. Even if, let's say I put the red in the exact same position so that you can see the red triangles in the same position, you can easily see that the blue and white are on different sides of the square now. So that's what I mean about a mirror image. So that's why, in fact, you need all 4 of these sewn so that you get 4 like this and 4 like that. Out of each of these units, you will get 1 like this and 1 like that. So that's the reason it takes 4 of them. So you would have enough of these units to make your whole block, or to make 2 9-patch blocks in the center. So now what I want to do is go back and take you through the block and how we're going to sew it. Once you have the 4 units, let me just kind of rearrange this a little bit on my mat, my board, and we'll walk through this, okay? All right, here it is. So you're going to put your 4 half squares here with the green pointed in, and you're going to piece together your 1 3/4 by 3-inch strips to get this unit. Once you get this unit, it should come back to being 8 inches, and you'll sew your tan strip alongside of it. So you've made this unit, all 4 of these, and all 4 of those, and now you've made your 3-part square. Now you see why I'm calling it a 3-part square. I wanted that thread to go off of there. The reason I'm calling it a 3-part square is because there are 3 triangles to make up the square. Now when you go to place this on your board and make your block, make sure that the red, the large triangle, is always facing against the center square. So if it's not, then it's going to be all messed up. So be sure that the larger of the 3 triangles is up against the center square. You see? And once that's like that, then you're ready to sew it in rows. So you're going to have 3 here, 3 here, and, oh, for heaven's sake, and 3 right here. And you'll make this like a 9-patch star again and connect it through these center seams, and you'll have an 8-inch finished square, and that includes seam allowance. And then you'll sew these 8-inch units to the top and bottom, and you'll sew this half square to this unit to this unit, and the same thing on the other side. Join the half squares to the strip unit and then sew them alongside, and your block is finished. So it's really quite simple. It's easy to do, but you have learned a new trick now. You've learned about the 3-part square, and the big deal here is the mirror image. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and when we get back together again, we'll be doing the final star in our quilt, which is called the Deer Creek Star. See you next time.